of related to graphic organisers, but there's another method called decisions, and there's stuff on both my books about this, but you can give students a set of cards, and they've got to sort them in some way, like pair them up, put them into categories or groups, put them in the right sequence, and so on. This, of course, can be done electronically, can be done on a computer, it can be done on a VLE, with the students dragging and dropping text boxes or images or whatever is appropriate. You know, so it really lends itself to e-learning, IoT, ICT, whatever you call it. So you give students a set of cards. It's got some technical terms on it. It's got some explanations of those technical terms on it, but it's got 4 or 5 explanations of this term, and what they have to choose which one's the right one. A bit like multiple choice. And they work in groups of 2 or 3, and they pair up. That's in algebra, that's in English. Do they mean the same thing? There are other ones that look very similar, and they have to decide which one's the best English translation of an algebra statement. You could obviously pair up a question with an answer or whatever. You can label things by moving cards around, yeah? Whenever you do these games, though, always have things that don't match, don't pair, don't sequence. So if you do a labelling game, put something in that isn't on the diagram, right? So, Iran, yeah? It's not in Africa. Most students will find a place for it, but it's not in Africa. But if you've got spurious cards, it makes students think about every single one they pick up. Hang on, is she trying to catch me out with this one? Yeah, it makes them think much harder. They can group cards. Here are the nouns, here are the verbs, here are things that are neither nouns nor verbs. Yeah? And the students have got to argue about which one goes where. You can sequence cards. What would you do if you came across somebody with a suspected electric shock? Yeah? What would you do first, second, third? The students are given a whole lot of cards. Some of them are spurious, like, you know, find some Wellingtons and some rubber gloves. You know, they'll usually have that as number 2 or number 3. You know, but when they come across the one that says "turn off the electricity," they think, "Yeah, hang on. If we've turned off the electricity, do we need rubber gloves?" So you're forcing them into thinking through a process, and our vocational teaching's, you know, got tons of this stuff in it, hasn't it? Lots of situations where students have got to go through a process and know a sequence for achieving something or whatever. So that's decisions. Again, very high effect size. Takes a bit of time and thought to design. So if you do that, share it with your colleagues, and maybe they'll do one for you, and you know, you do one for Unit 1, and they'll do one for Unit 2, sort of thing. And then gradually, over the years, you'll build up a stock of these, and they're tremendously powerful. But you've got to get students arguing about which ones go where. And if they get one in the wrong place, you know, you say, "Well, why have you got that one there?" Don't say that's wrong, it should be another one. Just say, "Why have you got that one there?" Because what you're doing here is you're trying to diagnose their misconception so that you can put it right. So a good question is, why have you got that one there? And it's enormous fun doing it by yourself, but it works better when students do it in pairs or 3. So it works really well with, you can produce a set of cards like this with just a table format in Word or any other word processing thing. But you can obviously also do it with text boxes. But there is a lot to be said for the discussion that takes place in placing those things, rather than students doing it alone. All of the methods we've looked at here could be adapted to ICT, to e-learning, to the use of media, but electronic media and digital media. But I'd make a strong statement that you've got to make the media do what makes the students learn. The media must force the student into the thinking processes that creates good learning. Yeah? And sequencing things works really well, we know. Why don't you get students to sequence things, you know, using your digital media? Just the fact that students are using computers will not produce high quality learning. The question is, what is going on up here when the student is using the technology? You can get a very low effect size with computers. Typically, to begin with, they were 0.3 or something like that. The methods I've been talking about are 3 times that, in terms of learning power. But of course, if you use these high performance methods on your VLE or your computer computers or whatever, then you'll get, if they're doing hypothesis testing on a computer, then they will learn very well from it. There's a paper on my website if you want to download it called e-learning, which looks at how to use the cognitive processes that students learn best from in the IT computer context. Anyway, thanks for your time and your attention. I hope you've got taking something away you would like to try. I'd like to think you'll try it repeatedly, not just expect yourself to do it perfectly first time. Won't happen, even if only because your students won't be used to the method. And I'd like to think you'll talk with your colleagues about what you've tried, what's worked well, what's not worked so well, so that you can share in that development as well, in your communities of practice perhaps. But thank you very much for your time and attention, and the best of luck trying some of those methods out. Thank you.